I'm teacher Karina, and I'm here to share some information with you about Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was the well-loved and prolific British author of numerous works that are now considered classics.
Charles Dickens was about 9, I believe, when he and his father were out walking one day. They walked up a hill and saw this fine house and little garden.
And Charles Dickens fell madly in love with it. His father said, well, in the typical time-honoured fashion, well, son, one day, if you do very well and grow up, you could be the owner of that house. He never forgot it.
But even in these happy times, John Dickens' carelessness with money began to threaten the family's security. In 1822, John Dickens was again transferred, this time to London, at a reduced salary. Charles' schooling was abruptly halted as the family plunged deeper and deeper into debt.
Finally, by the time Dickens was 12, his father was arrested for debt and thrown into the Marshalsea. The Marshalsea was a prison into which you were put if you couldn't afford to pay your debts, and you could bring your family to live with you if you so chose.
Charles, who was the eldest male child of the family, was not allowed to move into the debtor's prison with the rest of the family. The young boy was seen as an economic resource to the family. He was sent to work in a shoe polish factory. A whole line of boys were set up an assembly line to dirty their hands and move the blacking into the bottles, close the bottles, seal them, put labels on them, and out they went to be shipped. The young boy was put on that assembly line. It was a disaster for him. Every one of his fantasies was suddenly crushed.
Much of Dickens's success can be attributed to the serialized format of his works. In 1836, a complete leather-bound novel could only be afforded by the well-to-do. But a book sold in parts brought literature to the masses.
With 2 illustrations and 32 pages of text, you have a monthly part that is an installment of an ongoing text. Now, you can sell that for a shilling. And people, just as they do about the daytime serials and soaps today, talked about what happened to the characters last month. And did you read that? Do you think he's going to get married? And so there was a tremendous kind of word-of-mouth incentive to buy the next installment.
Despite his failing health, Dickens threw himself into a new passion: public readings of his best-loved works.
Indeed, it was said that the audience was getting the greatest reader of the greatest writer of the age. Although he was standing at a podium and never changed costume or did any of those other kinds of theatrical tricks, he had tricks of face and voice that brought the different characters alive.
In 1867, Dickens decided he would do a second American visit to give a series of readings. The calculation was that he would earn a great deal of money. He had an immensely successful American trip, but he paid a very heavy price for it.
Upon his return to London, family and friends were shocked at Dickens's frail and haggard appearance. But not only did he begin plans for a new novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, he also set out upon a last reading tour of Great Britain.
He knew his health was failing, and he took a physician to the theater with him who would monitor his pulse. Dickens was unable to keep food down, and before he went on stage, he would drink a raw egg whipped up in sherry, and people couldn't believe how feeble he was. And then he would walk out onto stage, and this world of figures and words that had been circulating through his body for 40 years, and that he had one last chance to articulate, would come out.
When he's given up his readings, he turns yet again to a new story, to Edwin Drood. Edwin Drood is a complete change from everything he's done before. It's going to be a mystery. He's trying something absolutely new. And what does he do to us? He dies in the middle of it, so we'll never know where it's going.